let me turn to the self, because that's what I'm supposed to be talking about. I would say the self is an illusion. What do I mean by illusion? I don't mean, like Dan Dennett and other people who are interested in illusions, you get accused of saying it doesn't exist. The Buddha had this trouble, didn't he? To some people he would say, of course the self exists. And to other people he'd say, no, there's no self. I think the point about this is, it's not that there is or isn't a self, it's that the self is not what we think. So look it up in the dictionary, which is what I did when I started to get into trouble with this concept. Illusion in the dictionary is usually defined as something like something that is not what it seems to be, something that we're deluded about its nature. So I would like to ask you now, just for a moment, to be conscious and see, what is it like to be me now? Right. Does it seem a bit like this? Well, I know that you know that there isn't an armchair in your head that you're sitting in. But I suggest many of you will have dropped out of this feeling, but you can probably drop back into it. Most people in the world, I think, do feel something like this. It's very natural. It seems to be the way that we're built. That we feel as, oh, there's my foot. That's my foot, that's my knee, that's my tummy, and I'm in here looking at them. When I look, I'm up here and I'm looking at my foot. And I'm over here and you're out there. That's a kind of natural way that we feel about ourselves. But of course it's rubbish. There is not only no armchair, but there isn't any place in the brain. This is what Dan Dennett calls the Cartesian theatre. It's this alluring place that we kind of invent. We may give up Cartesian dualism, we may be absolutely sure that there isn't mind stuff and physical stuff, or matter and consciousness. We say we're monists, but actually we still believe in a kind of experiencing self, the experiencer and the experience. And according to him, and I would agree, this is just, it doesn't fit with what we know about how the brain works at all. So that's why he says that when you discard Cartesian dualism, as almost everybody does, you must really discard the show that would have gone on in the Cartesian theatre and the audience as well. Now, people often throw out the audience, or they think they do, but it kind of creeps back. It's even harder to throw out the show. The feeling that I am having a stream of experiences is so compelling that we keep getting back into it. But it makes no sense at all in terms of what's going on in the brain. When you look at the visual cortex here at the back of your brain, which is a good proportion of your brain, vision is very important in humans, you find there's something like 40 parallel pathways going on there. Some meet up again and separate out, others don't. Different information being, going through the ventral stream and the dorsal stream and doing different jobs. And they never come together into some kind of place where the picture is that you see in the world. Because you don't actually see a picture in the world. We're kind of compelling this feeling that, oh, I can see the whole room, when you actually, and that's another whole story, which I've often talked about and written about, but to do with change blindness, inattentional blindness, and so on. We can show that there isn't that kind of a representation. There isn't anywhere in the brain where the show happens. There's just shows going on all over the place, lots and lots and lots of parallel shows. Indeed, we know so much now about the mechanisms of self-control, of decision-making, of choices and so on, and where they're happening in frontal cortex, prefrontal cortex, and so on, again distributed and so on, that the idea of there being a me who initiates actions is just bonkers, but it still feels that way. Okay, the science, I think, is therefore very helpful, because it goes on banging, you're not in there. There's just this stuff, doing something, whatever it is, and we don't even know fundamentally what it is. So, I've said that already. There's nowhere in there where it all comes together. There's just all this massive parallel processing going on, causing these words to come out, and this body not to crash into the pretty flowers. I tried inventing this little graphic this morning, which doesn't quite do it justice, but what I'm thinking is something like this. Most of the time, most of our lives, most of the time, what's happening is what you'd expect in a complex brain, in a complex body, in a complex world. There's multiple parallel streams going along, and none of them is in consciousness or out of consciousness. None of them is what I am experiencing or I'm not experiencing. They're all just going along, some bigger than others. And that's what these lines are. Some are ephemeral, very short-lived, some are rather longer. Some, maybe there are selves. Maybe this one, there's a kind of a bit of a self-construct going along, and we know where these self-constructs are made in the temporoparietal junction is the body image made, and so on. So we can, you can track those things if we wanted to. But what I'm suggesting is there might even be two in parallel. There might be several in parallel, coming and going, shifting.